What's cracking, everybody? You're back with Mr. Berger. It's been a bit, but here I am. And tonight we're going to be taking a look at this 2.8 Elixir cost Hog Cycle deck. Now this is a deck that I've recently started using in ladder. If you guys recall, the recent deck that I was playing on ladder was a little bit funky. It was an eBarb rage deck. I threw in like bats and minion horde and a couple things in there. And it was a little bit wonky. I had some fun with it, and the eBarb rage combo was pretty hilarious. So I'll probably use it again in the future. But I decided I wanted to go back to using more of like a kind of Hog Cycle deck. And as you've probably heard already in my other videos, when you're playing on ladder, I'm a big fan of using cards that are of the highest level if you're really trying to push. So that being said, of course, at this trophy range, you're generally going to see a lot of rares and commons. So I made a pretty much rare and common heavy deck that used a lot of my highest level cards. And I made a Hog Cycle deck around that concept, and it's been working out pretty well so far. Now, it's not super cheap. It's not like 2.6 or 2.4 or anything crazy like that. But it is 2.8, so it's still very fast. You got a lot of cheap cycle cards in there. Now, this is going to be kind of an on-the-fly video. I don't have it quite as organized as I do for some other ones. But regardless, I really wanted to share this deck with you guys, show a bunch of replays here that I had success with. I've been going up and down with the deck, so you know, I get tilted sometimes just like anybody does, and I drop a bunch of trophies, but I have been able to push up just under League 2, so just under 4,300 trophies with this deck, and I'm convinced that I can get back up to 4,300, back up into League 2 by the end of the current season if I continue to try to push with this deck. So let's break down the cards first. Let's take a look at them, maybe talk about a few replacements, then talk about the kind of strategies behind the deck, and then just jump into, you know, looking at examples through the replays. So, starting in the top left there, we got the Ice Spirit. Now, Ice Spirit is kind of the core of any cycle deck. You want to have this in pretty much any deck that you want to be able to cycle through your cards quickly, because it's only a 1 Elixir cost card, one of the only 1 Elixir cost cards in the game. It has the potential for a ton of value with its AoE damage and its little mini stun. It can interrupt charging units and buildings like the Inferno Dragon and the Inferno Tower. It can really cheaply support a Hog, allowing it to get a few more swings on the tower. You can even use it to do things like counter a Minion Horde or counter minions for only 1 Elixir. Now, it doesn't completely shut down a Minion Horde anymore, but it gets them really low, where you can basically zap them and then they'll die, or just support them with something else cheap and then they'll die. Or just take a little bit of damage on your Princess Tower. So the Ice Spirit is always going to be really poor in the cycle decks, and I honestly like it in a lot of decks, even not really cycle decks, even heavier decks I'll use it sometimes. Now, of course, we got the Zap in there, and why don't we go ahead and talk about both the spells at the same time since we're going to that. And I think this is really important to note. There's a certain synergy that you want to go for in a lot of decks with the spells that you choose. So, I've played Hog Poison, I've played Hog Lightning, I've played Hog Fireball. I decided for this deck, since I'm kind of going for like ladder pushing, and I kind of wanted to play a cliche, you know, Hog Cycle deck with high level cards, I was going to go for the classic Fireball Zap combo. Now, a Fireball and a Zap, as you probably know already, completely take out a Musketeer, a Wizard. Doesn't take out a Witch anymore because they buffed her HP, but it's just a really deadly combo. Now, the Fireball is also really effective for, like you saw there, finishing off towers, and also sending it in preemptively with your Hog. So, like, for example, if you know that they have, like, a Minion Horde, say, and they're always using their Minion Horde to counter your Hog, you can predictively send in that Fireball with the Hog, and ideally it'll take out that Minion Horde right as they place it. That's a positive trade, and it allows your Hog to get a bunch of damage, a bunch of swings off on the tower, takes out their counter, the Fireball chips away at the tower too, all kinds of great stuff, right? The Zap obviously is good for, you know, clearing out swarm units and things like that. Now let's take a look really quickly here at the replay. You notice what I did there is I hard pushed on the left because I knew that he was going to try to Llama Hound push on the right, and I kind of just played defense throughout the rest of the match here and go for that 1 crown of victory, if I'm not mistaken. So anyway, let's get back to the cards here. I just wanted to take note of that really quickly. If you like, of course you can do different spell variations. You can always replace the Zap with the Log. You can always replace Fireball with like Poison or Lightning. There's a lot of different options. This is just what I'm choosing to go with right now. Now, the Bats. Bats are kind of a flex spot. I really like Bats. they're kind of like a cheap card that's really good in a lot of cycle decks. They don't have that benefit of being a 1 elixir cost card like the skeleton, or the skeletons, sorry, the 3 skeletons right now. It used to be 4, it used to be 3, and then it was 4, and now it's back to 3. But regardless, they only cost 2 elixirs, so they're still really cheap, and they do a ton of damage. Their DPS is insanely high, and they provide you kind of an element of spell bait or zap bait if you're trying to go for a zap bait deck. And this isn't really a zap bait deck particularly. All you've really got is the bats and the guards, but regardless, that's just something to keep in mind. If you want to go with skeletons, that works out too. If you want to switch out the Ice Spirit for skeletons, that might work out too, but I really like that Ice Spirit in there. To me, there's no reason like not to use him in a cycle deck. Now, of course, we got the, let's do the Knight next. Knight is another kind of flex spot. Now, whereas you can go for a cheap cycle card like Skeletons or Goblin Gang in that bat spot, for the Knight you definitely want kind of a cheap-ish mini tank. So when I say like a mini tank, I mean something that doesn't cost too much, but has a relatively high health pool. So to me, the Giant is like the example of the lowest tier, lowest cost tank. It costs 5 elixir, and he has a ton of HP. Whereas the Ice Golem only costs 2 elixir, and has significantly less HP, but plays a very similar role in the fact that he kind of tanks for units behind him. He doesn't do nearly as much damage to the tower, and that's kind of one of the drawbacks to only costing 2 HP or 2 elixir, sorry, instead of 5. But his, role is relatively similar in the fact that he's a tank. So the Knight in this case is the mini tank in this deck, and the reason that I use the Knight in this deck is because that's my first max level card, as I've said many times before. That's why I have him up there. Used to be my favorite card, but hey, he got the nerf stick too many times, so I had to kind of put him on the back burner for a little while. Now, despite putting him on the back burner, I continue to use him after I say that, right? Because he's my first max level card, and I'm really trying to take advantage of those high level cards since I'm pushing on ladder. So the Knight is the mini tank that I chose for this deck. I would definitely replace it with an Ice Golem, or in this case, actually a Valkyrie. Somebody commented recently saying I should switch out the Valkyrie or the Knight for a Valkyrie, and I'm like, yeah, I agree, dude. The problem is that my Valkyrie is only like level 8, whereas my Knight is maxed out. So once I get that Valkyrie up a little bit higher level, I'll probably be using her on ladder unless they nerf her. Because right now she's just insanely strong. She's gotten like 7 buffs in a row or something crazy like that. So anyway, guys, if you have the Valkyrie and you have her leveled up, I would definitely recommend giving her a shot in that kind of mini tank role. Now the Valkyrie is a little bit different. She costs a little bit more. She does cost 4 elixir. So she's a little bit leaning more on the heavy elixir side, but not only is she a mini tank like the Ice Golem, she's a really deadly damage dealer and clears out swarms, so she plays a lot of different roles all in one. Really strong card right now. Now let's go to the Mega Minion. Mega Minion is another very much a flex spot. The Mega Minion, I feel like I kind of just slapped him in there again because he was my highest card level. They recently gave him a minor nerf, and I honestly feel like that hardly changed him at all. It was like a really slight attack damage or attack speed nerf or something like that. And it was just because he had really high usage and win rates. And a lot of people have said, oh, he's a really balanced card. He's the most balanced card in Clash Royale. I've heard that one multiple times. Whatever, that's fine. You can have your own opinions, but regardless, what they did is they looked at the win rates and the usage rates. They saw that the Mega Minion was significantly high compared to most other cards, and they gave it a minor nerf just to kind of see how it went. And the nerf is so small that if you have that Mega Minion leveled and you like playing with it, just keep it there in that deck. There's no reason not to have it in there. It's still a pretty solid card. Now, if you don't want the Mega Minion, there's a lot of different things you can put in a Hog Cycle deck. You could definitely put like more of a range support card, and that's generally what you would see in a deck like this. I'm kind of lacking that in this deck, honestly, like a Musketeer or an E-Wiz or something like that. Executioner, but if you go Executioner, make sure you put a Tornado in there as well. Ice Wizard, and maybe a Tornado too. There's all kinds of things that you can put in there. You can go for regular minions, whatever you want. Put a Goblin Gang in there. That costs 3 as well, and that makes it even more of a Zap Bait deck. But the Goblin Gang, honestly, would be a better replacement for the guards, and I'll get there in just a minute here. So that Mega Minion is definitely a flex spot. You can even go for, like, if you went for a Bandit or a Royal Ghost or a Dark Prince, I'd probably actually switch out the Knight for that, because you want, like, kind of a mini-tank melee unit, and then you also kind of want some sort of, like, a ranged support air attacker as well, and in this case the Mega Minion kind of like fits that role as kind of like a pseudo-ranged unit that is definitely an air counter, shuts down balloons and things like that pretty well. Now the Hog here. Well, the Hog is irreplaceable. If you replace the Hog in this deck, then it is no longer a Hog Cycle deck. Regardless, if you are trying to go for just kind of a cycle deck with another win condition, you could probably do a pretty similar deck to this and put in another major solo win condition, like a win condition that is reliant only upon itself and works out well in cycle decks. So I'm thinking like a Mortar is a really easy, cheap, free-to-play win condition, free-to-play friendly win condition. So Mortar would be an option in there if you really wanted to switch it up, but that would really change the kind of style of your deck. It would no longer be a Hog deck, and there's probably better alternatives that have kind of pseudo synergies with the Mortar itself. You could probably put in something fun like a Battle Ram, but Battle Ram is like not so reliable. The Hog is just such a solid, reliable win condition for. It's available at Arena 1 now. I can't believe they brought it down to Arena 1. It's available at Arena 1, and you can use it all the way up until you get your account maxed out, or whatever you want. So definitely put the Hog in this deck. If you change that win condition to like a Royal Giant, or a Mortar, or something like that, it's definitely going to change the deck a lot. Makes it a whole different style deck. But you can kind of use the concept of these cycle cards and the tips that I'm trying to provide for you here to apply that to another win condition if you decide to do so. Now lastly, we got the guards, and as I mentioned, guards can easily be replaced with Goblin Gang. The guard's role here is kind of the swarm card. In a lot of these cycle decks, you have some sort of cheap, like skeleton army or Goblin Gang or something like that. And I was kind of like, when I was crafting this deck, I was a little bit going for a Zap Bait deck. So I was thinking Goblin Gang, but then I decided, okay, Goblins got nerfed a lot. Guards got buffed a while back, and they're still a really solid card, and I recently got my guards up to level 6, which is decent for Epic at my point. And so I'm like, alright, let's try it out. And it's worked out pretty well. I like them in the deck. They're a really interesting card because of their shield effect. They kind of count as a swarm unit because of like the goblins what am I trying to say here? When you place down goblins, there's 3 of them, right? In the same way that there's 3 guards when you place them down, so they can counter something like a prince really well. It's not as swarmy, obviously, as like a skeleton army or a goblin gang, where there's like 5 units or 10 or 15 units or whatever, but it plays a similar role. And that shield effect makes it so that if they're running in and supporting your Hog, then basically if they try to counter it with like a log or something like that, they'll live through it, because anything that provides damage to them, causes damage to them before the shield breaks, will then break that shield, and they'll continue to live through it no matter how much damage it does. So like if they rocket the shield and the shield breaks, they'll still have full health and continue to run through. If they log it or fireball it, whatever they do to it, arrows it, maybe they put a Valkyrie down, they're going to survive at least that one first swing. So they're a really solid support card because they'll always live through your opponent's counters, and then continue to be able to provide support for your Hog. So again, guys, if you want to replace that, just get rid of them and put in another kind of swarmy, probably maybe even another cheap cycly card like skeletons or goblins or something like that. Alright guys, that's enough about talking about the specific cards and card replacements. Let's talk a little bit more about strategy. So let's think, what's the main concept behind a cycle deck? Well, the idea is to outcycle your opponent's win condition or outcycle their counter. So what you want to do is send that Hog in as much as possible, but making sure that they're not just going to completely shut it down for a positive Elixir trade. So if they have a tornado up every single time that you send the Hog in, don't give them 1 Elixir basically by sending that Hog in willy-nilly whenever you see it in your hand. What you want to do is try to kind of, first of all, outcycle their counter, or secondly, wait till you have some sort of support. Use your bats on defense, use your Mega Minion on defense, use your guards on defense, and then as they're going in and they're crossing the bridge after they've performed the role on defense, you can then use them as kind of support for your Hog. Send the Hog in front of them, have him tank for them, or if you have the Knight out there, have the Knight tank for the Hog and give him a little pig push there, and have him run up to the tower and do even more damage to it. So generally you don't send the Hog in alone, but you can do so if you find a way to kind of outcycle your opponent. Now you can outcycle their counter, you can outcycle their win condition. That's the whole concept behind having this really cheap Cycle deck. You got so many cheap cards. You got the Ice Spirit only costs 1, Zap and Bats only cost 2, Guards, Knight, and Mega Minion only costs 3. So it's definitely a very fast and very cheap deck. The Knight is a really awesome card, I think, because it only costs 3, and as you can see there, it provides a really solid defense against eBarbs. So if you see eBarbs coming at you and you got the same cards in this deck, you can use like the Knight and the Ice Spirit, and if placed properly, they can actually completely shut down eBarbs, assuming that they don't have any support there. Now, the Hog is the major win condition, obviously. So if you find that it's effective to send it in as often as possible, then by all means do so. But again, you generally want to try to place some sort of defense and then send him in with support. And you can see there, he used the Zap on the left, and how he doesn't have that Zap for the guards. And they're not generally going to Zap or log your guards, but it's possible that they do. Or if you see them that they do log your guards, then you can Zap your guards, then you can, more safely put down your bats. So there's that minor element of Zap bait, and that's kind of what I was going for at the beginning again, but it's not there too much. Alright guys, at this point, let's go ahead and just jump into talking about the specific matches. So again, at this point in the match, I know I just said that, but repeating myself, at this point in the match, I can just play defense because I took that right tower. And since I have such a low elixir cost deck, it's really easy for me to always have an answer to these aggressive pushes when you're playing things like eBarbs, which you see a lot in a very wide trophy range. I know they changed it recently, but you definitely still see them a lot. Alright guys, let's go ahead and take a look at this particular match here. I remember having fun with this match. I think I eventually caused my opponent to, I hesitate to use the term rage quit, but maybe concede would be a good term. Now let's see, the first play that he makes there, he uses the Inferno Tower as his opener. I don't know if I agree with that. Maybe he didn't have anything else he wanted to use, and he was just kind of trying to cycle it out. But it just allows me to have the knowledge now that he has that Inferno Tower, that it's one of the cards in his deck. And I can see that it's max level, so I'm a little bit scared here. Now he uses the Hog in the back. Are you kidding me? Is this a joke? Okay, no wonder I was able to cause this player to concede. He's using his Hog way in the back. But anyway, hey, to each his own. Maybe he has some sort of secret strategy, some sort of special move where he's like, alright, I'm going to throw them off guard by using my Hog in the back and make them think I'm a noob and then absolutely crush them. Or maybe he's going for a beatdown push with that Witch, who knows. But either way, I see that he has a Hog freeze deck. He's got max level eBarbs. He's got a max level Inferno Tower, high level Witch, and that freeze. Oh man, it's going to be deadly. And look how I shut down the eBarbs here. It's a great usage of the Knight and the Ice Spirit to take out the eBarbs. Now you can see that the Princess provided them a little bit of extra support, so it wasn't able to completely shut them down. I had to use the guards to finish off the eBarbs, but they do a good job there. And you can see what I'm doing here. I use the guards to kind of mini tank for that Hog as he runs in, and the Hog then mini tanks for all the bats, and I zap his minion horde, and the bats, since the zap doesn't finish them off at that level, the bats actually go in and just finish off all of his minion hordes, all of his minion horde minis. So it worked out really well. Definitely a positive elixir trade, I guess, for me, and an advantageous play for me. Alright, at this point, one of the things that I like doing is cycling in the back. You'll often see that as my opening move. I wish I had mentioned this sooner when I was talking more about strategy, but opening moves, I like to cycle stuff in the back. I generally don't open with the Hog. I like to kind of wait to see what they have, and then send in the Hog at opportune times. And you can see that he does a good job freezing there, but I actually get to the point where I have 2 Knights running at the same point. That's pretty awesome. The fun of a cycle deck. You can cycle back to your cards really quickly and get 2 or 3 of the same card in the field without having a mirror in your deck. Go for a split push here. And I think at this point he's just like, whatever, and he concedes. So let's go ahead and speed through this last replay here and finish it off. I guess I should have said last bit of this replay, because this here is actually the last replay. So guys, let's take a look at what I do here. This is against the Bridge Spam deck, and Bridge Spam has seen definitely a pretty significant nerf lately. The Dark Prince got a really solid nerf. 2 nerfs actually. They weren't solid individually, but I think just together overall he's kind of fallen off. He was just absolutely everywhere before, and that's what made Bridge Spam so powerful for a while. So since he got nerfed, I've been seeing him a lot less, so I don't see Bridge Spam nearly as much. Regardless, you do see it from time to time. You see different variations of it. So let's see how I handle it here. I have a good answer to his battle ram for sure, because I got the bats, I got the ice spirit to interrupt the charge, I got the zap to interrupt the charge, Mega Minion could probably shut it down, all kinds of stuff. The knight, the Inferno Dragon, I'm not too worried about that because I have a really cheap deck, and there's nothing too heavy in my deck that gets countered by the Inferno Dragon. I've got a lot of swarmy cards with the bats and the guards, and then I can again interrupt it with the zap or the ice spirit. Now what I do here is I send in the hog on the right. I see that he has the Inferno Dragon as a counter, and again, that's not a big deal. I zapped a little bit early. I should have waited a second or two, I think. I probably could have gotten one more swing off on the tower. But regardless, it was a bunch of swings by the hog, and that works out really well. Now the knight is a great counter to the Dark Prince because it's a solo unit. The Dark Prince shines against swarm units, against kind of multiple units at once because of his cleave, his AoE effect. But against the solo unit, he doesn't do too much. So a knight does a great job of shutting down that Dark Prince, and he does the same thing with like a giant skeleton. I really wish they hadn't nerfed him because he was so strong, and I really liked him a lot, but hey, that's alright. I'm complaining about them nerfing my favorite card, right? Either way, he's still a really strong card if you have him leveled, and he's only 3 Elixir, so he does a good job of shutting down lots of things. And there the guards would... Oh, they do shut down the battle ram. I thought that the zap was going to be enough there, but it wasn't. So they kill the ram. One of the barbarians gets a few swings off on the tower, which is not too big of a deal. I want to answer this bandit in the right here, so I put down the knight. And there comes in the knight. There the knight comes in handy again. You can see, playing his role. And I go for the counter push on the right there. If you have a hog with bats behind it, it can be absolutely devastating. Do so much damage. And you can see them very often cycling back to things like these bats, because since he's a bridge spam deck, he's got a kind of a lot of ground attackers. He does have an E-Wiz in there, which can take out the bats, but the bats do a great job of finishing off things like the battle ram. And at this point, I'm kind of getting aggressive. I'm like, alright, I'm so close to getting that king tower that I don't want to go for the princess tower anymore because it has significantly less health. Why would I go for the tower with 3,000 some health when there's one sitting up there with 500 health? So I play into this new elixir, or new overtime amount is the word, or the words that I'm looking for. The overtime now lasts for 3 minutes on ladder, and I'm playing into that here, and what I'm doing is I'm trying to play aggressive with the hog and send in the fireball and kind of cycle through. Even if the hog doesn't connect, he's got to kind of answer it and commit elixir to that, and then I need to play a little bit of defense. And I know that he's really low, or his tower's really low. I can get it with like one more fireball zap combo. Look at the fireball, gets it down to 1 HP, and then I finish it off with the zap. And what a way to finish the video. Absolutely great. Alright guys, I think that is going to be it for this video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. I really appreciate it. Make sure that you do the stereotypical YouTube stuff and like, comment, and subscribe, and share, and all that good stuff. I've been doing the comment of the day thing. People seem to love it, so hey, leave an awesome comment. Maybe I'll give you guys a shout out. So, what else is there? I hope that you appreciated this Hog Cycle deck. Give it a try. Let me know what you think. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Have a good night.